Welcome back to the week end wrap. No production, just my thoughts. Now, usually this is a wrap up of the entire week as a whole, or the weekend as a whole, with all the boxing that goes on. But this week there is absolutely nothing of consequence to talk about. The biggest point would maybe be to say congratulations to Sigalina Favre for winning the WBO Super Bantamweight title in the women's division. There was a Golden Boy Promotions card on last night, which was headlined by William Zepeda and Jaime Aboleda. Yeah, it was pretty awful, to be honest. There was nothing of note to speak about, apart from maybe Diego De La Hoya getting knocked out by Victor Morales Jr., which was, I guess, something no one was expecting. Well, to be honest, I think that was probably the only quote-unquote 50-50 fight on the card. I know William Zepeda was supposed to fight last week on the undercard of Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, but because Virgil Ortiz and Imanta Stanionis got, postponed due to the rhabdomyolysis that Virgil Ortiz has suffered yet again, they moved it a week to just save this card. But to be honest, might as well have scrapped the whole thing. Actually, no, let me not be that bad, man. It was, I guess, there's going to be duds at every point. You can't just have great card after great card after great card. And I'm used to having my weekends just jam-packed with more stuff than I've got the time to watch. So I guess on this occasion, it could have actually been a week off. So you kind of view it in that sort of realm. But yeah, it wasn't great. William Zepeda did what he needed to do. Knocked out Jaime Aboleda in 2 rounds with body shots, funnily enough. But Aboleda went down twice due to body shots, but got back up. The last set of body shots folded him. He was writhing in agony on the ground. That was a legit knockout. But we're not going to go into that. We'll leave that in last week. Or maybe it might end up being on the breakdown, as we didn't actually get to that last week. It looks like we're going to have to be talking about all of last week's action and the minuscule stuff we had this week, this Tuesday coming. So I'm sure the numbers ain't going to be too great for it, because it's not really a talking point anymore. But it is what it is. So that's pretty much that wrapped up. So if we go kind of just through the week and look at some of the other things that have taken place. So, okay, we had the press conference for Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith's rematch. We also found out on the undercard for that press conference that, Franchon Cruz-Dezurn will defend her undisputed super middleweight titles against Savannah Marshall. We then found out that Natasha Jonas will be on the undercard for that as well, defending her unified 154 straps. No opponent as of yet, but I've seen a couple of rumors, obviously who it might be, but ultimately it's just going to be kind of a run out fight. That's kind of how it's looking. Zach Chelli is returning to the ring as well after his win over Anthony Sims Jr. back in February. So that's not a bad addition to the card as well. Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately the card itself is shaping up fairly well. I'm sure there will be another, not a big name as such, but I'm sure there's going to be 1 or 2 other competitive type fights on there. So can't really complain on that one, to be totally honest. Like I said, I was at the press conference, which a lot of you will know. It was a very fun and entertaining time. I mean, I've just come to realize that, Chris Eubank Jr. at this point is just a parody of himself, and he is literally just like the ultimate troll. He can elicit a laugh from anyone. He's almost must-watch TV outside of the ring. That's kind of his lane at the moment. You kind of always gonna watch him to find out what outlandish thing he's gonna say next. We spoke about obviously his right to take a beating if that's what he was supposed to receive, or his right to be able to come back from a crisis. As I said before, I kind of understand where he's coming from, and I mean, in my terms of like boxing and how I kind of look at things, I'm actually quite I'm quite cool with how that stuff goes, in terms of, you let someone go until they can't go anymore, like, until the point that that they're literally laid out flat on their back. Let them carry on. If they keep getting up, unless you've got the free knockdown rule, unless they're physically incapable of moving, like, let them continue. We've done it in the past. Why not allow people to do it now? I mean, obviously, I understand the reasons behind why you don't want to do that. You don't want to risk, permanent injuries and whatnot. But some fighters should maybe just be given that if they haven't necessarily taken huge amounts of punishment over their career, then you maybe let them ride a little more. But that's, I guess, the more old school version of a fight fan in me. It will never happen. So even him saying, in the next one, I don't want any towels being brought to the ring, I don't want the ref to stop it unless I'm laid out flat on my back or whatever. I doubt that's going to take place, but it's a good talking point. We've also had rumours of a potential announcement of the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford undisputed 147 fight, which is supposed to be happening in Las Vegas on July 22nd. Now, I've heard it from a couple of credible sources that it is actually happening this time, and it's not just talk like had been discussed previously. So I'm going to trust those sources. I'm not going to give any further credence or information or feelings about the fight until it is officially announced, but I will trust those sources because they've very seldom been wrong when it comes to conversations that they've had with me. Almost every single time they've said something to me, it's panned out, so I've got no reason to doubt what they've said. We've had Anthony Joshua obviously speaking with Sky earlier on this week, as I had stated, just regarding being a thinker, maybe an overthinker, not necessarily being an aggressive character, being more of a boxer than an actual, fighter or a brawler. But, if he has to fight, he will. And he's, I guess he'll be more of a box fighter. As I said yesterday, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he was always a boxer fighter / boxer puncher. That's always been his style. He's never been a pure boxer. He's never been a pressure fighter. So him saying that, it's almost like he's trying to reinvent the wheel that has been on the card the entire time. Didn't really make much sense, but we kind of know that AJ doesn't make sense at the best of times, especially when that's him almost just working out different processes for him. Some people do that. They it doesn't make sense to us, but to them, maybe every second and fifth and ninth word that they say is the actual sentence, and you'd have to pick it apart to understand. Some people have those almost like those coded messages. Now, I'm not saying that is AJ, but we can give him the benefit of the doubt, because clearly whatever he's saying makes sense in his mind, especially being an overthinker. So we'll see. We'll see what's happens with that. But again, I want him fighting in the summer. I think he needs to stay active, get under the bright lights again, see if he can execute the game plans in the high pressure situation as opposed to in sparring where things are controlled. And if he just goes straight into a December clash with Fury or Wilder, I'm not as confident as I would have been previously. I just feel like the kinks need to be worked out. They need to be ironed out in the ring. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Conor Benn, I think this was last week actually, but he officially sent the details over to UKAD for his hearing. and he has officially been suspended pending investigation at the moment. So that doesn't really make much sense to me because he doesn't have a license. So what are you suspending? Because I've always been told that if you don't have a license, you almost at that point, if he doesn't have a license at that time, well, he's not under any jurisdiction. So you can't suspend someone who doesn't have something for you to take anyway. That's almost like fining someone that's broke. Well, what are you fining them for that? What, you're not going to achieve anything off of that. That's how it seems. And I guess even if they do, whatever happens, if he does serve a ban of sorts, as far as I'm aware, a lot of these places work independent of each other. So I don't know if you would have to have a WADA wide ban. But then in that instance, I guess you could still fight outside of that and just not have WADA accredited testing on the fights. It's weird. I don't know how it's going to work. I'm assuming the ban can only work for the UK. If he gets a license elsewhere, he could still fight. I'm sure that's how it works. So I don't know what the sort of how this is going to play out, but good luck to him. Good luck to UKAD, and the BBBOC are going to do what they do off of the findings of that. So I guess we'll see how long that takes. Apparently he's still going to be fighting in the middle of June, according to Eddie Hearn. So we'll see. It's only about 7 weeks to go to find out. So yeah. Also, so a bit of news that I found out about 2 or 3 days ago, but I decided to keep it quiet just because I wasn't aware as to whether or not it's supposed to be out there yet. It hasn't been announced officially, but I have seen other platforms talking about it, so I'll just say it on here as well. The reports are that Regis Prograis has decided to sign with Matchroom instead of Top Rank, and will be the face of the Matchroom 140 pound division. So it will be, exclusive to the zone at this point in time. So that ultimately means that you've got 2 champions at the PBC, with soon to be Rolly Romero and Sublier Matias. Because obviously Alberto Puello, it looks like, maybe stripped of that, or of his 140 title that he was due to defend against Rolly, and Rolly will fight Ishmael Barroso for the vacant title, although that hasn't been confirmed yet. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen, but we'll see. Who's got the 140, and then obviously the 140 belt on Top Rank, the WBO belt, is with Josh Taylor. So he's going to be facing Teofimo Lopez on the 10th of June. So yeah, you've got 4 belts across 3 different platforms. So the chances of unifications happening is probably not going to be great, but at least each platform now can, they've got pretty decent stable. You've got Arnold Barbosa at Top Rank. You've got Teo, you've got Josh Taylor, you've got Devin Haney that's likely going to move up to 140, whether he actually fights for Top Rank or he leaves because he's on his last fight now. Jose Ramirez, I think, is actually going to be leaving there shortly, so he might end up on DAZN as well. Jose Pedraza, I think he's still kicking around. I'm not sure what his contract situation is like. And then, yeah, you got the 140s on the PBC. They're the only ones that can actually have a unification at this point, with the IBF and the WBA. So I'm sure that will sort of come together at some point in the near future. But yeah, Regis Prograis looking like going to be the top dog. You got Jack Catterall over there. You got Richardson Hitchens over there. You got Liam Paro over there. So yeah, there's some good names, and that 140 division, obviously, maybe Devin might go over there if he decides that the money's better with Matchroom and he's happier on DAZN than Top Rank. Guess we'll find out. What else sort of happened this week? Off the top of my head, I'm kind of drawing blanks. That seems like the majority of the important information. Oh yeah, I guess with the numbers for Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia not officially out at the moment, but you know there's been rumors between 800,000 by way of Rick Glacier all the way up to sort of 1.4, 1.5. I've heard reported via Ade Oladipo and TalkSport, and then comfortably somewhere in the middle of 1.2 by Keith Idec, and that's across both platforms. So that's the DAZN platform and the Showtime platform. So yeah, I mean, the interesting thing would be how many of the 450,000 supposed DAZN purchases were Tank Davis fans, and then how many of the supposed 600,000 to 700,000 Showtime buys were Ryan Garcia fans, because that would be an interesting dynamic as to, okay, the narrative that Tank sells between the 175 and 275 at his peak for his pay-per-views. So how many additional Tank fans that purchased through Showtime because of that, and then how many were there because Ryan did it, and then vice versa on the other side. Very interesting. It would be nice to kind of get breakdowns of, you know, sort of who purchased from where and, you know, at what point. But again, that might not, those numbers could potentially dwindle because there may be you know, a mass refund by you know, DAZN to the people that purchased the fight and wasn't able to watch it because the servers crashed. Let this be a lesson to certain people though. Like, ultimately, if the price is gonna be, if it's $60 at the start and it's $60 right at the end, or 85, or however much the pay-per-view is, don't just purchase on the day. Look, I understand sometimes you want to make sure that the fight's taking place before you purchase, but if you purchase the event and the fight don't take place, you get a refund anyway. But whenever you do the last minute stuff, it's always a recipe for disaster. Anything can happen last minute. You know, people overload servers, they crash. It's always better to do it when there's less traffic on servers and on the networks than, you know, when it's likely to be at its busiest. But hey, that could quite possibly hamper their you know, the buyers on that side, and then that could drastically reduce the amount that did go out. But look, we wait and see. I guess with bated breath. There's been the talk of, is Gervonta Davis the face of boxing now? The talk to me firmly a no. He is a star in boxing. He's definitely a star at the lower weights. I don't know if I can say he's a superstar yet. That will be dependent to me on sort of what his tracking is after this moving forward. Like, if his new benchmark is like 400k and everything does 400 and above, then yeah, in this day and age you could say that's superstar status, or at least get into there. If it kind of goes to like maybe 325, no, you're pretty much back to where you were at your peak. It's not a huge difference, but obviously if he takes the big names and beats the big names and cements his name in the 135 or the 140 division or whatever catch weights he wants to do in between, then you've definitely got an argument to him that he is the next up. But as I've said in the previous video, the face of boxing, like the superstar, has the endorsement deals, and unless he has all of those big endorsement deals, then you are not going to be the face, because the face is someone that the brands want to be associated with. So if Ryan had of won, there's a very big chance you could say he is the next face of boxing, just because he will get those endorsement deals hands down, the same way that Canelo has them, AJ has them. I'm not even sure who else. Some of the lighter weights, like the sort of Mexican Americans, like a lot of those will have similar deals as well. But that's how you determine who the face is like who the brands go behind. But he is marketable. He's I would definitely call him he's an attraction. That's what I would call him. I wouldn't say he's the face of boxing. I'd say he's a special attraction within boxing, and I think that's fair. But yeah, overall, I think that's pretty much the bulk of everything summed up. Actually, I was asked a question by JD Boxing. Bear with me. Let me go and get my phone. He asked me to address something. So one sec. Yeah. So JD Boxing asked me to just speak about William Zepeda and how well I think he would do at 140. I think that was the question he was asking, if I watch his performance over the weekend. Well, look, William Zepeda did what he needed to do. He's a talent. His level of competition, I guess, needs to kind of go up a bit now. But the good thing about him is he's active. And if he were to go to 140, because obviously he's at 135 at the moment, I feel like he's got the necessary size to be able to compete up there. And if his gas tank would remain the same with the additional 5 pounds, then he'll beat a lot of guys just based on attrition. But he's not the biggest puncher. So if he just goes into wars with people, like if he tries to fight Jeremiah Ponce, for instance, or Subriel Matias with just his work rate, he will get knocked out. He's got obviously good punch selection, but he just doesn't, to be in front of those guys just, minute after minute, second after second, without setting things up and just letting your hands go, you will get caught in between the shots. A lot of guys he'll overwhelm just because he's got the energy to keep going, but you will notice that when it goes towards the back end of the fights, you will see his energy doesn't necessarily dip, but his punching power decreases a lot, and he will literally just kind of throw arm punches, or he'll push punches out there. There's not much snap on them, so he's dangerous early. So the first sort of 7-8 rounds, that's when he's at his peak. Anything after that, if you're a person that has got good reserves, or you carry your power throughout the fight, that's when you hurt him. And we've seen it. Jojo Diaz was a key component to that. But yeah, if he went up to 140, I think he'd do well. Being on the zone, he would, be able to get some cross promotions with the Matchroom guys. I think him versus Liam Paro would be a good, interesting fight. Him versus Devin Haney in the future at 140 would also be very interesting, because Devin obviously likes to control pace, and if he doesn't get to control pace, how will that affect him? So he would pose Devin a lot of questions with that high volume southpaw stance. But yeah, him versus Paro would be a pretty good one. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, then put something down in the comments and I'll address it. But I think that was the only thing that someone asked me. So with that being said, I am now going to go and watch the football before I head to the gym and eat some good food on this Sunday afternoon. So thank you very much for watching. That is the week end wrapped up, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.